in Louisville, Kentucky. And a lot of these distilleries are kind of like what Napa Valley, Sonoma is doing right now, where they're progressing on the food aspect. They want to build out more on that and try to capitalize on their tourism with like restaurants and stuff like that.
Gotcha, yeah.
And so I went down there, looked at a place. Singlethorpe was very spoiled us in a sense, like, probably with Meadowood, everything had a story. Either whether it be a plate, a food item from the farm that the farmer grew. So there was always something to talk about. And even like going down to Blackberry Farms, there wasn't, even though there was a lot of money and a lot of cool, unique things, there wasn't that background on it. And we were just trying to figure out, like, maybe, that type of food or that scale isn't our thing. And plus, like, we wanted to talk about, like, how we wanted to bring that into our life wherever we decided to move and progress and stuff like that. And then, right before the pandemic, I was talking to a local restaurateur in St. Louis. He reached out about a local spot that he was going to open up for banquet and catering. I'm like, well, if that's my foot in the door and back into the St. Louis community, let me try it out. And the more we talked about it, we're like, I think we should move back to St. Louis. We already had roots here from the restaurant previously. We knew a lot of restaurateurs. She had plenty of friends from school. And we just felt that was home, if you will. And we felt good coming back here, and we didn't have to make new friends. We didn't have to, suck up and go to a bar and like, oh, hey, we're new here. Can we be friends type scenario. Like, we already had those established.
Understood.
And
we're new here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing, bro.
Yeah. And it's just, and then the pandemic hit, and we never moved down. Pandemic hit right before. We were looking at that, and I had a few discussions with that restaurateur, and I'm like, damn, like, I don't know how this is going to go, but we were living with her parents, so my in-laws, hunkered in their basement. We're just, everything was locked down, cleaning everything. Like, pandemic was full throttle, and like, okay, how do I make something of? Because I'm just itching. I was going crazy, but good, and thankfully, Amelia's mom let me just kind of take the reins of like cooking lunch, cooking dinner, like just let me cook. So like being very hands-on with Lowry's seasoned salt was huge, because it was like in her cabinet. I'm like, I haven't touched this in forever. How can I?
And now it's okay.
Yeah,
dude, that was what happened to me at the ranch.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm cooking for people at home, and like I can use roux again, and I can use slurries, and no one's gonna be like, well, well, you do reduction now. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, totally. Bro, let me do what I want to do. You know?
Yeah. And, this is like, okay, this week we're going to tonight we're going to do chili rellenos. Or I did a couple different interpretations of it, or derivatives of hollandaise sauce. And I'm like, teaching them different cuisine that they're used to. And it was definitely beautiful for all of us. Thankfully, they understood we didn't have jobs, and so they were very like hospitable with us living underneath their roof again. And it was good for Amelia. I think when you're a child or a teenager, you have relationships with your parents, and you move out, and maybe not to say that they fizzle, but like I love my parents to death, but I don't have that great of a relationship as I think with her mom that she has, because hunkering down in there for almost a year, she got to know her daughter, a different side of her daughter, because she was a different age at the time.
Yeah.
The daughter that she hasn't really grown up with. So I think it was a beautiful, relationship building experience, especially with her dad too.
Gotcha.
I think they both enjoyed having each other there.
Mm-hmm. Were you worried during pandemic? Like, what the fuck am I going to do?
Because it was just our
collecting?
Yes. Thankfully, right before the pandemic hit, I forgot about this. Holy shit.
Won the lotto.
A restaurateur in St. Louis was opening up a couple restaurants in Chicago, and it's called Suciotalk. David Choi, thanks so much. He helped me out a lot on this. He was opening up a restaurant near her hometown before the pandemic hit, and he's like, hey, can you come consult for me?
Yeah.
Can you just help me get this up and running? I'm like, sure. And for some reason, I was like, I'm just going to make this an LLC. See if this takes off, as I can consult, I'll do it. Pandemic hit, PPP comes out. And my father-in-law was like, you should look into PPP. Because, I worked for Choi for about 4 or 5 months. And I was like, okay. And I was able to get a nice little cushion. And so that kind of helped me out a little bit. The Alinea started doing the take-home dinners. I don't know if you saw any of those pictures of, the Alinea home experience where you're doing like the truffle explosion at home or shit like that. So like, okay, I'm going to go up to Alinea and get takeout food for my in-laws. Yeah. And we're going to have a nice Saturday night dinner.
That's baller. Wow, how was it?
Oh, it was insane, and especially directions. Like, we're used to that, fine detail. But when you read the directions of what they're giving, you're like, holy fuck, they just went to another extreme of detail. Yeah. And it was, everything was like meased out accordingly. Granted, there were, it's a lot of to-go boxes, 2-ounce ramekins, and shit like that.
For sure, yeah.
But it was fun. It was eye-opening for my in-laws, and, it made the pandemic very beautiful.
Bearable. Yeah. Gotcha. Exactly. Bearable but beautiful. I get what you're saying. Because, it's hard to... Because I benefited, I think, during the pandemic. It showed me a different side of who I could be, know? And... but then it's also like, thank God for pandemic. You don't want to be saying that either, because of the thing. It had varying degrees of sadness and success. Yeah, for a lot of different people. Sure. So I don't know where we're still in it. Let's see what happens. But what happens after that?
And then
after pandemic,
we're in the heart of it, and keeping an eye on like St. Louis food scene, and hearing everyone's struggles or people are shutting down. And Gerard Kraft decided to shut down actually like a week before shutdown. Yeah, shut down all these restaurants. I believe he paid everyone for about a month without working in a way. But he reached out and was like, "Hey, I need someone to help me reopen my restaurants." Yeah, and from him and Kevin being really good friends, Gerard was aware that I was kind of looking for work, and so even though it was definitely hard because going to the outside world was scary, and I left my wife in Chicago with her parents. I moved down here and stayed with a friend. Yeah, for the first 8 months, and
you were like, "Am I still married?"
It literally, it's so unique to be in our first year of marriage and not see each other. And I was living with a friend that was thankfully, again, being cautious, but he trusted me that I was going to be cautious, and he just let me sleep in his spare bedroom. And I got to little by little came on board to kind of help get these restaurants back open. And we had 3 restaurants basically to open that are the heavy hitters, if you will. And so being the Brasserie and the Pasteria in Clayton, or the Pasteria in Nashville. And so we came up with guidelines and feeding off everyone else's restaurant, or trying to figure out the right thing to do. They were doing takeout. We started doing takeout service and stuff like that. But then, how do we get open? Like, how do we get people back in safely? Buying all the hand sanitizer, buying all the gloves before any of those kind of things dwindled down. And that was very eye-opening, because I tried to open up 3 restaurants with the help of all our upper management team in a safe way, in a new way, unexpected way. Like, especially we had to shut down a few times when, people did test positive. Like, okay, who was working that day? Who was around them? They have to stay home. Like, just the hard and the unbearable, foreseeable future that the pandemic,
And then the guidelines were like changing every week.
Totally.
Fucking the plastic fucking things barriers over everything, it was wild.
The unique thing was that both this location, the other 2 heavy hitters, they're a lot of square feet. They're about 5,000 to 6,000 square feet. So like 6 feet, we did the 6 feet minimum, and like, okay, we can still do business. And just like this restaurant where we have the bar, we couldn't really open the bar because that's 25 seats. Can't do shit in there with all the guidelines. So we just spaced every table out 6 feet and used it as overflow for this restaurant. And we got a tent put up in a kind of unique way. We were doing really great numbers. We beat some numbers in 2019, funny enough, in 2020 with the pandemic going on because we had so much space to put everyone.
Yeah.
Here, and like the same in Pastaria, where there was 2 restaurants that we owned, but we converted one to like a deli during the pandemic to kind of do some like, reheatable meals, but also like an Italian deli, if you will.
Yeah.
But that night it was closed, and so we did overflow for Pastaria there, and again to kind of keep people spread, but also take advantage of the space and hopefully do good numbers. I mean, thankfully we were able to do decent numbers. Stayed afloat. Of course, there was some restaurants that fizzled, and it was heartbreaking to see, especially some older restaurants in St. Louis that died down. But like, it was all about those little maneuvers, or able to do those maneuvers that really like progressed us. And Gerard was like, "Well, if you want to be our culinary director, I'd really love to have you on board," and stuff like that. So, I think that was a no-brainer. But then also that was that moment of like, are you going to be okay not being in the kitchen?
Yeah, in the kitchen anymore.
And sidetrack. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say sidetrack story. I have 2 neurological disorders.
Okay. When
I was in 2nd grade, I had this disorder called Guillain-Barré, paralyzed me, legs and arms. Like I couldn't walk, so I was in the hospital for like a month. Did like a year of physical therapy, got back up. When I was in St. Louis the first time, I've noticed like my legs aren't calf heavy as you would, if you will. Like I don't know how your calves look, but like I've seen people's calves in the kitchen. I'm like, my calves don't look like that.
I got Snoop Dogg physique, baby.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I'm like a spaghetti.
Oh, same. I don't. From my knees down, I don't got anything. And it's like, this is weird. What's wrong? Went to see a neurologist again. And did some testing, have like this disorder called CMT. It's called Charcot-Marie-Tooth, and it's this disorder where I have tremors, but also my brain never sent any signals down to my left leg, basically, because that's where my neuropathy is, where it never built any calf muscle.
Understood.
So like, especially doing out in Single Thread or at Sydney Street, I felt that fatigue of my legs of just like.
You couldn't work the long hours.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I was definitely doing.
You did it.
Yeah, exactly. You did it, but you're like,
something's wrong.
Something's wrong. And so it never really affected me until actually Single Thread, and where you would push and push, and I would have these spells where I would have felt like the flu symptoms, where it was like, my achy joints, achy muscles, twitching. Almost like hot
flashes and stuff.
Yeah, and it was just kind of unbearable, but also like, the first time it happened, I was like, after like the 3rd day, like, shit, I got to call off again. Like, how shitty it looks to call off work. And went to see a neurologist again out there just to kind of confirm this. And I'm like, these are kind of like some of the side effects. Like if I push myself so hard, there's times where I will have to wake up in the morning like your body's like, you're going to stay here because you can't do this. And, thankfully it's only happened a few times here, and I can gauge it, and I'm not working like, the long hours in the kitchen. I'm doing a little more office work, so I'm not putting a lot of strain on my legs.
Yeah.
But, those circumstances where as a chef, it kind of hits you hard. You're like, fuck, I can't compete like how I used to.
Yeah.
And it kind of
not the athlete you used to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Cooks are athletes.
Totally.
100%.
Totally. And so when that position of, not being in the kitchen, like, okay, that's great. I can, I can hone in on my management skills, oversee 7 restaurants, and, still be more of a mentor, push the kitchen in a way that, maybe I'm not used to doing and stuff like that. So it's been a huge, amazing, I think, accomplishment for me to, we're getting ready to open our 7th restaurant literally tomorrow. Yeah. We're opening tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, we're opening a small like breakfast lunch spot.
So you're open for breakfast tomorrow?
Yes.
All right.
So I guess
I'll be there, baby.
I'll give you the address.
The first day. Look at that.
Day. Yeah.
You see, sometimes things just line up, bro. I'm supposed to be in St. Louis today.
Exactly. And